Welcome all, and thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Sarah, and I am one of IPC's program and outreach coordinators for Montgomery, Frederick, and Prince George's County. And we also have Anna, who is our Director of Leadership Cultivation. Also, Bonnie's here tonight, who many of you know already. She's our interim One Water Partnership Director. And we're also very lucky to have Molly. She's our Eastern Shore Outreach Coordinator. So we are so thrilled to have you here with us. And before we start, we'll go through just a very brief Zoom tutorial for any new users in the room. The main controls you can see on this slide are as follows. You have one for your microphone, which you will use to mute and unmute yourself. Number two is the camera. This webinar will be recorded, so we ask that if you do not wish to have your picture shown during our time together, simply turn off the camera now. And three is the chat feature, which we'll use to send messages and ask or answer questions during the webinar. And next, we'll just take a quick look at some of the views you can have, starting with the speaker view. And if you wish to change this at any time, please hover your cursor over the square. You can see the red arrow there. There's 4 dots, and you can change it to the next view, which is our gallery view. And this is where you'll see everyone in the room. And last, if you wish to rename yourself, you can tap on your name and a pop-up box will appear here, and you can write your congregation name after your name if you haven't already done so. And just a few quick etiquette tips on how to have a pleasant experience for everyone while we're here. Please mute yourself while a speaker is talking to avoid background noises. Second, please turn off your camera if you need to move around and do not wish to be recorded. And last, if you need help, just use the chat box and an IPC staff will be happy to assist you. And now I would just like to take a moment to acknowledge this land and these waters that were stewarded by many who came before. And as we gather here today, we wish to hold space for silent reflection on and gratitude for the land upon which we live and the local waters that support and nourish us all. We recognize that this land and these waters were stewarded by many who came before, the original people who believed they belonged to these lands and waters, not the other way around. Their spirituality and identity were place-based. The stories these indigenous people, plants, animals, lands, and rivers witnessed are filled with environmental, social, and climate changes, interwoven with stories of many struggles, injustices, and resilience. And thank you, Anna, for placing a link in the chat, which we encourage you to view at your convenience, where you can learn more about the people that originally inhabited the land that you're standing on right now. And so if you could please join me while muted in a prayer of commitment. We are gathered here as people of faith in response to the calling of our hearts to come alongside the original stewards of this land and these waters that sustain us all. We seek to change the narrative of this story towards one of harmony with the gifts of creation and all living beings. May we act upon this calling in a way that helps us all, not only to heal the wounds of nature, but the wounds of our common story and living communities as well. Our hearts are full of hope as we come together with honor for all of life. And next, would just like to share a quick video in honor of Chief Quiet Thunder of the Nanticoke Nani Lenape Tribal Nation of New Jersey. It explains some of the Native American earth honoring ways of life.
They mimic as much of nature as they possibly could, because that's where all their knowledge, everything they knew came from nature. They were in nature every day of their lives. That set their stage each morning from the days when they would step from their wigwam, go to the stream and cleanse themselves, and then turn to the east. The sun would rise, they would pray. Now, Europeans said that we were praying to the sun and the sun god, but that's not true. What is true, we could see God's power manifested in that human ball of fire and light and warmth and the promise of a new day. But we could see God's power manifested in the wind, the rain, the snow, the mountains, and all creation. all creation. And they knew where they fit into that balance. That's what's missing today. Man has get so superior in his thinking that he's superior to nature. Can't be superior to something that was already non-existent.
Thank you for taking that moment with me. And now we can dive right into this topic that has brought us all together this evening, our common roots and interfaith environmental stewardship. And here to kick us off is the brilliant Rabbi David Shneyer from Kolel, who will share with us what his faith tradition teaches about environmental stewardship. And thank you so much, David, for coming. Oh, I think you're muted.
Yeah. All right. So I just said, I don't know about brilliant, but thank you for the introduction. Again, my name is David Shneyer, and I serve a couple of communities here in Montgomery County, and actually the greater Washington, D.C. area. So I have a few minutes here to talk about Judaism's teachings about this subject. Well, Judaism, as I've really come to learn much more intensely over the past, I think 40 or so years, is an earth-based religion or an earth-based civilization. Most of our holidays are rooted, in the earth, in the agricultural seasons. We just finished celebrating the final harvest festival called Sukkot. And I can talk more about that, but we don't have enough time. What I'd like to do is maybe share some of our early teachings from the Torah. The Torah, that's a nice photograph, from the Torah, which is the Hebrew Bible, essentially. The Hebrew Bible actually consists of the 5 books of Moses, the prophets, and the writings. It's also known as, obviously, the Old Testament in the Christian tradition. So going back to the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, I'd like to share with you some of the teachings from there. So we could probably do a little screen share if you have that slide available, just to look at the verses from our Torah, from the book of Genesis. Should we try to do that? Wow, look at that. That's a wonderful illustration. Thank you. Did you do that, Sarah? Wow, you're amazing. All right, so one of the very first teachings, this is chapter 1 of the book of Genesis, is how we are created. We, the human. Now the translations, most translations say man. Well, the Hebrew word is Adam, which means a human, and then more collectively humankind, created in God's image. In the image of God, God created them, male and female, God created them. So there's a sense, first of all, that the first human was both male and female, which is a very interesting thing to get into. But the word Adam is significant because it really means a human, and the word for earth is Adamah. It's the same word, but a feminization, a strong feminization of the word Adam. So that connection has some significant teachings right there. If we look at the next teaching from chapter 1 of Genesis, God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea, the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the earth. Now, this is a little controversial in some circles because it seems to kind of exalt, human supremacy over all of creation. What other interpretations also teach is that we are also responsible. To have dominion means to take responsibility, for the living inhabitants of this earth. In fact, in the creation story, it says, let us make the human in our image. In one of the other verses, who's the us? Well, the us is all of creation that comes before the creation of the human. If we move into chapter 2, if you scroll a little bit there, chapter 2 of Genesis, this is a very significant verse because chapter 2 is like another creation story. It's a different authorship, in fact. The Ineffable took the human and put him, I put that in quotes, obviously, in the Garden of Eden to work it and take what? What's the next? Oh, I can't, let me reduce the size here. There, take care, to protect it. The word in Hebrew is lishmor, which means to guard, to protect the earth. So here, this is a very, very clear expression of our responsibility to till the land, but also to protect, to be stewards of the earth. If we move forward a little bit, can you scroll down there? That's it. Okay. So now we're moving to Exodus. Okay. Here we have the teachings about the Sabbath day. Okay, from the Ten Commandments. It talks about 6 days you shall labor, and the seventh day is a Sabbath to the ineffable God, your God. On it you shall do and not do any work. And I highlighted that for an important reason. So on the seventh day, our animals, everything is supposed to take a rest. Our servants, our families, everyone is supposed to take a rest. It's a day that we are being called to be in harmony with nature and with other beings. And that's kind of lost that essential significance. The word in Hebrew, there are 2 words in Hebrew for work. One is avodah, which means you work at something. Work also refers to certain kinds of activity. So the work here is called malacha in the Hebrew, which refers to planting. We're not supposed to plant or till the soil or harvest, or we're also taught not to break branches, even, for example, not to do anything that interferes with being in harmonious relationship with nature. So the Sabbath in our tradition is like the first Earth Day, if you wish, but it's once a week. It's an Earth Day that comes once a week to be in harmony with nature. It's the psychoanalyst who is also an atheist, Erich Fromm, who was Jewish. He spoke about this in a book called The Forgotten Language, how the Sabbath day is a day of intentional being in harmony with nature. One of the names actually in our teachings in the Talmud is also Teva. It's another name for God, which means nature. Moving along in Exodus 23 here, we see this incredible teaching some of you may be familiar with. Now here we have every seventh day, but here 6 years you shall sow the land and gather in the increase thereof, but the seventh year you shall let it rest and lay fallow. So there's a sabbatical year. It's called Shemitah, and we just had the Shemitah year last year. And in Israel, and also it's expanded also to the diaspora in ways in which new Jewish environmental organizations are commemorating or celebrating the.
Hi, my dear. Lovely to see you.
Shemitah year. Mute yourself. That the poor of the people may eat. So everyone has equal access to the land during the seventh year, and so on. Deuteronomy, I'm flying here into Deuteronomy, which is the 5th book of the Torah, an incredible teaching that we recite 2 times a day, in the morning and in the evening. It says here, it shall be that if you earnestly obey my commandments, in Hebrew, those are the mitzvahs or the mitzvot, which I command today, to love the eternal your God and to serve God with all your heart, with all your soul, then I will give you the rain for your land in its season, the early rain and the latter, that you may gather in your corn, your grain, or your wine, and now here it says oil. It means olive oil. It's not, other oil, fossil fuel. I will send grass in your fields for your livestock, that you may eat and be filled. Take heed to yourselves, lest your heart be deceived, and you turn aside and serve other gods and worship them. Today, when we say this in our prayers in the morning, we think about, corporate gods, for example. Lest the Eternal's anger be aroused against you, and God shut up the heavens so that there be no rain, and the land yield no produce, and you perish quickly from the good land which the Eternal is giving you. So the mitzvot that we do, our right actions, are intimately connected with the health of the earth. Twice a day in our prayers, we pray, for the earth, for the earth. And we've been doing this for 2,500 years. So that's why I come back to this idea, and it's been reinforced more, in recent years especially, about the connectedness of our tradition with the earth. We continue a little further on, and I'm watching my time. I have maybe a minute. If you could scroll, thank you, Sarah. Is there anything else? From the Talmud, this is very interesting. The Talmud is a collection of teachings and discussions, and it's a long explanation, but in the Talmud, behold my works, how pleasant, how beautiful they are. And I created it all for you. Be aware and don't ruin or destroy my world, for if you ruin it, there is no one to come and fix it after you. So this is from what's called Midrash in the Torah. It's interesting. Another teaching comes from another book of the Talmud. It is forbidden to live in a town which has no garden or greenery. My goodness. Threshing floors have to be placed far enough from a town so that it would not be dirtied by chaff, carried by winds. And so, so there really is a tremendous consciousness. And the same thing with the idea of tanneries being kept at a certain distance from the town. So these are, maybe there's one more teaching we have time for. This is beautiful from a contemporary, one of the founders of the kibbutz movement back in the early 1900s, an ideologue of the kibbutz movement, which was about returning to the land and the earth so that we could also heal, because over the centuries, the Jewish people went from one place to another. We became very urbanized, and that really damaged our spirit. Well, this philosopher, A.D. Gordon, said, to heal ourselves, we needed to return to nature. When you, Hoehn, will turn to nature, that day your eyes will open. You will stare straight into the eyes of nature, and in its mirror, you will see your image. You will know that when you hid from yourself. We have been turned away from nature. If we desire life, we must establish a new relationship with nature. So those are some of the core teachings in our tradition that I wanted to share with you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rabbi David, for your wise words and really such an eloquent kickoff and connecting your tradition to why we're all here today. I greatly appreciate that. It is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker of the evening. She is an environmental educator, and she serves as the executive director of Green Muslims, a Washington, D.C. based nonprofit organization working to help connect the American Muslim community with nature and climate action. She speaks at local mosques, leads educational nature hikes, and puts together meaningful watershed education experiences through Green Muslims, Our Deen is Green youth education program. And through this work, she strives to encourage a spiritual connection with nature as well as environmental and climate awareness that is rooted in an Islamic understanding of environmental stewardship. So please welcome Sevim Kalyoncu.
Thank you so much. And Rabbi David, I really enjoyed your readings. Touches my heart whenever we are able to combine nature with our connection with our Creator. I feel, however, I should start with a little personal introduction, because I am by no stretch of the imagination an Islamic scholar, but I'm here to share my personal story and my personal understanding of my faith and how it reflects my work with Green Muslims. So I was raised Muslim in a town called Cottondale, Alabama. And we did not have a mosque in the area at all, or a religious school, or any real Muslim community that I interacted with on a regular basis. But I did grow up in the woods. I lived by a lake, and my natural surroundings served as my house of worship and also my book of God. I would go out as a child and feel that I was reading the signs of God when I was in nature. And I always felt closest to God when I was in the woods, and the beauty and the peace that I felt when I was in it served as proof for me of God's existence. And I developed a deep love of it and of its creator in my youth. And so outside of the basic understanding of the 5 pillars of my faith, I was actually quite ignorant about Islamic doctrine as a child. But as I learned more details, went to college, moved up to actually the greater Washington, DC area and interacted with more Muslims, took classes, I was pleased to see that those teachings actually already fit together with the understanding that had developed in my heart. First of all, and coming now to the topic at hand, Islam teaches that all humans are assigned by God to be the Khalifa of the earth. Specifically in Arabic, thank you, Khalifa fil ard, ard being earth, and Khalifa. It is a deep Arabic term with multiple interpretations, which I listed on the slide here. When I was a child, I remember my father telling me that we were the Khalifa of the earth. And I asked my father, what does Khalifa mean? And he said, vicegerent. And I nodded and I said, okay, because I wasn't willing to admit that I had no idea what a vicegerent was. And so I went many years with just this empty understanding that we humans are the vicegerents of the earth. But it turns out, and again, not understanding exactly what a vicegerent was, it turns out that the word is a very rich meaning. And nowadays, a much more common interpretation, at least in my field, is that Khalifa means steward. So Islam teaches as a core tenet that God placed us on the earth, all humans, to be the stewards of the earth. Steward, other meanings that I gave here, caretaker, also fit very well with the concept of environmental stewardship. So it is our God-given responsibility. Now, I also want to bring in a little bit of Islamic text for examples. And I'm not sure what I sent exactly. I started with the hadith. The hadith are the sayings or the practices of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And I have one of them listed here, but a few more to read as well as time permits. One that I like to refer to is the companions of the Prophet, those who were with him when he was receiving his revelations and teaching. They said to him, "O God's messenger, is there a reward for us in serving the animals?" His reply, "There is a reward for serving any living being." So we as humans should be thinking about the well-being of all of God's creation, not only the humans, but the animals and the plants as well. A couple other hadith that I like to read when I'm talking on this subject. They're coming. Okay, there is none amongst the Muslims who plants a tree or sows seeds and then a bird or a person or an animal eats from it, but is regarded as a charitable gift from him. So anything we are told that anything that we do that again helps others of creation, human or animal, but that God appreciates that and we will be rewarded for it. And one of my favorites, if the hour, meaning the final hour of time, the day before resurrection, is about to be established, and one of you was holding a palm shoot, or it's sometimes translated as a tree, a sapling, let him take advantage of even 1 second before the hour is established to plant it. So even if it's the last moment of life here on earth and you are planting a tree, you should continue to plant that tree, for God is aware of that. And that is also something for which you will be rewarded. That's how valuable it is to encourage life of a plant here on earth. There are also several verses in the Quran that reflect back on our role as Khalifa of the earth. But I find that these sayings of the Prophet give nice specific examples of actions. In the Quran, the most common reference to nature that I myself have seen, and I'm not a scholar, but as I read it, what touches my heart is something that connects back to my understanding of nature when I was a child, and that is the spiritual relevance, the spiritual importance of life here on this earth. So not only are we here to take care of this earth, but we are also placed on this earth so that we may connect with the creator of all of us. So the nature provides the source of information and connection to God as well. And so going on to the next bit of information that's on this slide. Sorry, you can stay on the same slide. You can go back to the previous one. Talking about the earth as a book of God. This is a quotation from the Quran itself. So in the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. And to God belongs the dominion of the heavens and the earth, and God is over all things. Indeed, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, the alteration of the night and the day are signs for those of understanding. Those who remember God standing and sitting and on their sides and meditate on the creation of the heavens and the earth. Our Lord, you have not created this in vain. Glory be to you. Guard us against the torment of the fire. And I actually put another one here as well. Let me just read from what I have handy. 2 more verses from the Quran talking about the signs of God in nature and how we are supposed to be reading them. We humans are supposed to be reading those signs to help us connect with our Creator. It is God who erected the heavens without pillars that you can see. Then he established himself above the throne and made subject the sun and the moon, each running its course for a specified term. He arranges each matter. He details the signs that you may, of the meeting with your Lord, be certain. Again, this reference to the Arabic word is ayat, signs of God in nature. And one more. Actually, where's the one I really wanted to share? And the earth, we spread it out and cast therein firmly set mountains, and we have made to grow therein of all beautiful kinds, to give sight and as a reminder to every servant who turns to God. Again, in God's creation, in nature, are the signs of God. And if we read them, then we will grow closer to the Creator. So I've got a couple more, but I will move on because there's one other topic I want to bring up. In general conclusion, Islam teaches that it is humanity's God-given responsibility to care for the environment, not only to take care of it, but also to connect with it and to learn from it. And from that, we not only serve God, but we also grow closer to God. To conclude my personal story, when I became a mother, I wanted my child to love and care for nature as much as I had. Again, it was a spiritual experience for me. It was a core part of my faith, and I wanted my own child to have that experience as well, even though she was growing up in a more diverse area and was going to interact with other Muslims and going to get to go to Sunday school. I still wanted her to have that personal connection. And I started to get involved with local environmental groups, and eventually took a position with Green Muslims. Now, Green Muslims is a Washington, D.C. metro area based organization, but with the silver lining of COVID, we are doing a lot more Zoom calls and working with a lot of groups across the country. But my favorite part of the work, in addition to having these interfaith discussions where we're able to connect with each other on this common understanding, my favorite part is to take kids outside. So we do lead nature hikes for Sunday school groups and scout troops, and go to local mosques to give talks about why we as Muslims should be concerned about the environment. And then I always have to add how we can connect with nature. But we have a specific program, which was mentioned in the introduction, called Our Deen is Green, or ODIG for short. Deen is the Arabic term for faith or religion. And this program is my favorite, absolute favorite part, because it is exactly what I wanted to do with my own child, and now I'm able to do it with other children as well. We take the kids out to local areas, farms, it could be on the water, to do meaningful watershed education experiences, which are common here in the Chesapeake Bay metro area, where kids get to learn about their entire watershed and how everything is connected. So we take the kids out and we do kind of a mini MeWe, as it's called, and teach them about the Chesapeake Bay watershed, but we also introduce them to the role of environmental stewardship in Islam. And we help them connect with the beauty of nature and the plants and the animals. And for many kids, this is a first time experience like this. And so we like to think that they take that that pleasant experience home with them, and they start to think more about their responsibilities towards the planet. And they also take the messages back home to their parents. And we actually always let parents come along if they want to as well. This is my favorite part. We get in the message that we need to be taking care of the earth, but we can also slip in that you can enjoy being in nature, and it can be a religious experience for you and a time for you to connect with God, and something that you can look forward to every day of your life. Thank you so much. Oh, did I get, yeah, sorry, the next slide. This is the one about our specific program. And if you want to get any more information, please check out the website at Green Muslims. It's actually Green Muslims with an S at the end, .org. And feel free to check in with me as well. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I'll make sure to make that edit. My apologies for the typo in the slide. But thank you so much, Sevim, for sharing your faith with us and, connecting it not only on a spiritual level, but an environmental level as well. And one thing I will carry with me for the rest of my days is the idea that even at the last hour, showing reverence for nature is like of utmost importance. And that really spoke to me. So thank you so much for sharing that. It was beautiful. Next, I would like to, and thank you, Anna, so much for that. The correct website is in the chat for everyone. Next, I would like to introduce Reverend Dick Hoehn. He is author of We Carry the Fire, Up from Apathy, and 60 other scholarly and popular writings. Very impressive. Welcome, and I will hand it over to you.
Okay, thanks for inviting me. Where we start, next slide, is in Germany. I have 4 children, and I have committed to make a trip abroad with each one of them one-on-one. And I recommend doing something like that. But this time it was my daughter Karen, who lives in Brussels, and we went to Germany on a genealogy trip. And in Flamborn, Germany, I was able to be in the church and stand beside the baptismal font that my great, 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 great grandfather was baptized at. We have been Lutherans so long that some of them probably heard Luther preach. Next slide. However, I also, when I was teaching in the divinity school, had a summer Fulbright to Indonesia. And those of you who speak Bahasa Indonesian, this is not a slide from that trip, okay? She's not talking about what I'm talking about. This is off the web. There was a woman there who was teaching us at Gajah Mada University on what is the Muslim faith. And her first sentence was, the heart of the Muslim faith is morality. And I wanted to jump up and say, where do I join? I really did feel that. While we were in Indonesia, next slide. We seem to, okay, can you go one more and then we'll back up? Nope, one more. Nope, okay, I guess it's not in there. While we were there, we took a side trip to up to the island of Sulawesi. And we were lucky enough to go up to the hinterland where the Toraja people happened to be having a public funeral. It was in the plaza. And during this service, they cut the throat of a water buffalo, and then they cut it up into pieces, and each family takes on a big stick over their shoulder, they take a big chunk of water buffalo home with them. After they cut the throat of the water buffalo, and the reason they do that is so that its spirit can rise to heaven to be with the guy that they're burying. I mean, where could you be in heaven without a water buffalo? And then after that, a guy stands up and it seems like he's preaching. It's, it's not in English, but you know it when you see it. And so it sounds like he's using the word Jesus. And I'm thinking, no, not here. And he sat down and the choir stood up and they sang, not in English, but they sang, Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. These were Christians. This was a Christian burial service. The Presbyterians had been there. The Presbyterian missionaries had been there. What it means to be Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, varies within groups and among groups. But we all have some common moral values. And now next slide. Jesus articulates the moral ideas in the Sermon on the Mount. And he draws on Leviticus. Now, love your neighbor as yourself, okay? But there is a parallel saying in Hinduism, Islam, Buddhism, Taoism, Zoroastrianism, Sikhism, Jainism, Baha'i, and Confucianism, because every religious tradition has a solid moral core. Yeah, it's interpreted differently here and there, but some of it is shared among faith groups. A passage that always inspired me, I spent 17 years working at Bread for the World, which is a hunger advocacy group, a lobbying group, and Bread for the World Institute, which is the educational part. And a passage that always inspired me is from Revelation. Then I saw a new heaven, next slide please, and a new earth. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and God will dwell with them. God will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. The one who was seated on the throne said, I am making everything new. The passage from Revelation echoes a passage from Isaiah 66, but it inspired me, this vision of a new heaven and a new earth. Vision is part of our moral core. We imagine how things could be different than they are. We, though many, share one cup. That is the cup of life. One more story from We Carry the Fire. As I was getting off a tour bus in Kuala Lumpur, I asked our tour guide if he was able to make an adequate living at being a guide, or whether he also had another job. I've asked that various times when I've traveled. I'm just curious about the lifestyle of tour guides and bus drivers. And he said, this really pays well. I work as a guide for 6 months, and then I volunteer at an ecology project in Kalimantan, or Borneo, part of Borneo. And there are people like him all over the world who get up in the morning to work for peace, for justice, for sustainability. We, you and I, and they all over the world are a family who carry the fires of citizenship. It's a spiritual family who carry the fires of family and citizenship. You're part of this global spiritual family. Thank you for encouraging me to be present with you tonight.
Thank you so much, Reverend Hoehn, for diving really deep into the connection we all came here to learn about. I really enjoyed those global stories, and I hope to have the same experience. I often find that I have more in common with people in different places than you realize. So thank you so much for being here as well. We do have one more speaker tonight. Finally, I would like to introduce Bob Houghton from Congregation Shaarai Shomayim. He led an interfaithal congregational restoration event, and we would really enjoy hearing more about how he organized and was able to get different congregations to help in that effort.
Thank you, Toda Rabbi, Rabbi Shukran, and thank you for the great information that we heard from different faith-based organizations here in regards to how does the earth work, for each of us. Congregation Shaarai Shomayim first worked with the Interfaith Partnership for the Chesapeake this past April when we were working on our annual Mitzvah Day, which for us is a day of community service that we've done on an annual basis for more years than what I've been around. And as we looked for ways that our congregation could support our community, we were impressed with the mission for the IPC, in a sense of bringing awareness and action to help the Chesapeake watershed and to try to get some hands-on and, work through the environment. So we were able to partner with the Apostle Church of Christ to work together to clean up Ratter Park, for our day. And it was an amazing day. All of the participants that came from Shaarai Shomayim that were engaged with that really enjoyed the, just the camaraderie and the coolness that came out of that. And there's a story about shopping cart that somehow got lodged in the mud there that seemed to take much of their effort to get out for that day. Another experience that we had, I was able to connect with Katie Ruth, who's really been tremendous to work with. We run a day camp over the summer, and I reached out to her and I said, hey, we are looking for an opportunity for our young teens to, get a better connection. And she was able to hook us up with Lancaster City to work on a project where we were going to be cleaning rain gardens. And I'll be quite honest to admit that I was unfamiliar with the concept of rain gardens until, we, got down and dirty that day to do some weeding and so forth. But it was an extremely valuable experience for all of us. Because not only did it give us the understanding of the importance of something like a rain garden, but it also gave us the bigger sense. It was like there's so much going on with our earth and so many things. Climate change and so many different ways. That seemed to be coming at us with what do we do? And it just was very refreshing to say, hey, one moment, one step, one action at a time. And so that moment to clean out rain gardens, was great for teens to be able to say, hey, today I did something that made a connection to make a difference. The Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake work to engage faith-based communities is such a great experience. It makes us all aware of the teaching about good actions, which, in listening to different faiths here tonight, it certainly resonates with us all. About ways that we can work to preserve our environment. The expansiveness that I found with IPC's mission to increase positive impact in working to, build ways to clean the Chesapeake, to support a movement of advocacy, which I think is wonderful, advocacy for change, as well as, and I saw it happen, that moment when we were, like I said, cleaning out rain gardens. It's a sense of at the very grassroots level, no pun intended, building leadership, to make people understand. But for that moment, it gave teens an idea of understanding of how much you can make a difference. Most importantly, though, creating a connection that recognizes that all faiths have for the earth to create a better environment. Educating us all on pollution and the challenges that, if left unchecked, posed a danger not only of damage for us today, but also for future generations to come. So, my testimonial is easy. It's being able to rally behind a community built on diversity that works for us all to work for the common good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bob, for sharing that. And I do love this picture here. There were a couple others, but that one really was wonderful and just kind of captures, how it looked fun. You look like you guys had fun. So thank you for sharing that story. I appreciate you also connecting again while we're all here, and that, all faiths have this common core that, we need to be stewards of the earth. I would like to open the floor. I'm sure people have questions, and I feel like at this moment, it's okay if you want to unmute yourself. And if you want to if you have a question, if you don't want to unmute yourself, you can pop it in the chat, but please feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions you might have over the material we just went over.
May I just say one sentence, and that is, if you're going to do one thing in the next week, vote. It may mean more than all the cans and bottles you recycle in your entire life. Vote.
I'm sorry. Please, Reverend Hoehn, continue.
No, I'm done. I'm done.
I'm so grateful for that reminder, and I feel silly for not mentioning it sooner, right? I mean, it's next week. It's so important. And I agree with you. It's probably one of the most important actions you can take if you're going to take one. So thanks for that reminder. I'm just going to open up the chat and see if anyone has any questions. While we have all of our wonderful speakers here, there's such a plethora of knowledge and wisdom in the room. Please feel free.
Yeah, I'm Tarun Podal. I'm from the Hindu Buddha Temple of the Baltimore County, Glenham. The very wonderful and interesting thoughts and information. Those people are like over 35 to those who have little more ages, I guess, have idea about how we can work on in the youth and these all common bullet points like Hinduism, Buddhism, or Islam, or Sikhs, or different faith, like how we can empower or encourage our kids or youth. Like if there are any other different ideas that what I have not experienced, or maybe that might be a good idea, have any successful story to engage more youth.
Okay, so who wants to take that question? I see Sevim, you're nodding.
I think I should let Rabbi David go first, but I do have some thoughts as well.
Yeah, I can maybe say a few words about that. I agree with you. And at our retreat center, I also direct Sanctuary Retreat Center, which is an ecumenical spiritual retreat center in Western Montgomery County. And I should say that the magnet school in Poolesville is a magnet school because of its focus on environmental studies. Like there are other magnet schools where they focus on the arts or math or national, whatever. In Poolesville, there's a focus on environmental studies. So that's fantastic. At our retreat center, for 12 years, we ran a summer program, a 2-week program for teenagers to teach them environmental ethics, how to connect with the earth, to garden, to, really feel that connection in the woods. And there's a need for that, absolutely. Sadly, we have to sell our retreat center. And we'd love to have, one way to keep it is if there's a consortium of partners, who will come together and envision that retreat center as a place where these kinds of educational programs could take place for youth and also for for adults. So I just wanted to put that out there. There is a need. And I know for the Partners of the Chesapeake, I think your long-range vision also has the idea of educational programs like that for you, as I understand. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's interesting that today I went one horse training there, and the kids are overwhelmingly happy to play with the animals. And thank God the Chesapeake the trust has invested them for the rain garden too, and it was very, very interesting. And from there I thought that, oh, the jumping, riding, hiking, tree, plants, animals, that's how we can more connect with it. More entertainment and religion. There should we connect, I guess.
Actually, that's what I was going to say. Through my work with Green Muslims and my private business as well, my hope is in the youth. Not only are young people already more aware of the challenges facing our planet right now and already active. I was talking at another panel earlier today, specifically dealing with environmental awareness in the Muslim American community. And I was noting how I've seen a lot of changes in our community in the last few years, but prior to that, I still saw Muslims as part of student groups, environmental student groups like Sunrise Movement and other local university groups and high school groups. The young people within our own community, and I trust within all communities, are a little bit more aware than those of us who haven't been living our whole lives through this, this crisis. We have been, but it hasn't been as openly discussed. But going back to the comments that you just made, this is my technique. I care about the earth because I love it. I love it because I was in it as a child and it made me happy. So if children can be exposed to the beauty of nature at an early age and then go ahead and connect it with their faith, imagine the power that will give and the responsibility that it gives that's grown from that love. It's the love of nature and who created the nature and who put us to take care of the nature, and hopefully that will influence their entire lives, their lifestyles, the actions they take, what they study in college, the careers they pursue, how they volunteer. I think the simple goal of taking kids outdoors and exposing them to the beauty of nature and gradually noting, because they'll see signs of damage. They'll see signs. From there, you can gradually teach about what is happening to the climate, what is happening to the earth, but always start from the positive so that love can develop.
Thank you so much.
Just one quick thing, that the school systems now do have that in the curriculum, the teaching of protecting the earth, taking care of the earth. What kind of energy are we using? Are we using, renewable energy to power things like wind, solar, wind? So that is being taught, and kids are exposed to that, which is a really good thing. But I agree with you. I think we need to get kids involved. That is very important because they are our future. Yeah.
And thank you so much for sharing that. And also, Sevim, your comment on motherhood. I think all parents in this room can attest that, at least I won't speak for everyone, I'll just speak for myself. I do think about, what is life going to be like when they reach my age, and I want there to be a good quality of life. And we can already see that there are some communities directly impacted by climate change, and it can seem overwhelming. So I do want to just thank for everyone that made comments about starting small, starting with, what you can do is the most important as well. So, it's very easy to get overwhelmed, but if you do small things, lifestyle, teaching that to your children, that has a huge ripple effect. You just can't can't underestimate how important that is. And I do we have a couple comments in the chat, and I do appreciate, Lisa, that was a good comment as well, just mentioning, yeah, getting them outside. Again, as other people had mentioned, there are horse farms in Maryland. You know, you got to travel a little bit, but those are also wonderful places. And there's a lot of farm land actually in Prince George's County. I think people are surprised about the agricultural areas that are still, you know, preserved. And just getting people out in nature and water is so important. Did anyone else have any other questions? There's some great conversation going on.
I'm wondering, I heard what Rabbi Shneyer was saying about having to sell this nature retreat place and looking for partner organizations. And I'm wondering where all you've tried and whether a consortium even of Jewish congregations might be helpful, even within the Jewish I mean, there's a very large network of Jewish organizations in this area, but also other faith-based groups, as you say.
Thank you. Well, 30% of our retreatants or clientele is from the Jewish community. The vast majority of those who come to use sanctuary are not from the Jewish community. So you know, we've reached out to various congregations. But most congregations, you know, especially during these COVID years, had a difficult time adjusting to that. We actually were essentially closed for more than 2.5 years. We lost 95% of our retreatants, our income, and had to let go of staff, half of our staff. And so now it's coming back. It's amazing. People are yearning to be back, to be outdoors, to be with each other, and so I'm hoping that you know, the partnership can be between various either interfaith communities, but also social justice, eco-justice communities. We're in conversation now with some groups that are trying to think it through with me, how that might work. So we're just starting to build build on that. And if anyone here is interested in pursuing that with us, that would be fantastic. Our community, we have to move back into, unfortunately, well, it's a nice place, Rockville Town Center, where we began in the first place. We need to move back there and to serve our members a little better, and also to downsize our operation. We can't afford to run this beautiful place by ourselves. It's called sanctuaryretreatcenter.com if you want to take a look at it. But that's what our goal, our hope is, to be in partnership maybe with other groups that can keep it alive as a center for nature. We're in the agricultural reserve of Montgomery County, which is 93,000 acres, 1/3 of Montgomery County. A lot of people don't know this. Set aside 40 some years ago as an agricultural recreational reserve, and it's amazing. It's a real treasure. And, our retreat center has been there. Well, the nuns, it was a farm. Before it was a farm, it belonged to the Piscataway peoples. It's an amazing place. It was a convent for 23 years. It was a monastery for 22 years. It was in the hands of various religious communities all these years, and we'd like to preserve that legacy.
And have you tried grants and so on? Grant applications?
No, frankly, we don't have the staff to pursue that. We are limited. I mean, here I am, a rabbi serving 2.5 congregations, actually. The half are those who are not actually members, but they see us, as their community. So I'm serving all the pastoral needs of these communities and trying to take care of the plumbing and the other aspects of the physical operation. Today I was out there on the grounds, planting. Actually, we planted a tree today out there in memory of someone in the community who we lost. So, and I'd like to say a shout out to Interfaith Partners, because was it 6 years ago, with Interfaith Partners on the State of Maryland, we planted 75 trees out there on the grounds. Both my communities came together over successive Sundays to plant these young trees on the land, because we have this wonderful watershed area that needed strengthening, and those trees are doing beautifully. So, and just want to mention that, and want to once again thank Interfaith Partnership for helping make that come about.
I think I would like to mention your efforts to the Green Team at Columbia Jewish Congregation. I don't want to speak for them because I'm not actually, I can't split my attention. I'm in the racial justice group. So I'm not in the Green Team, but I take a great interest in it, and they've been doing some really amazing things. I think it might be worth just asking, to what extent that might be of interest.
Well, if you want to make a connection, fine, but it would take a tremendous amount of resources, of any partner group to make this happen. To make it happen, someone has to manage the place. It's not inexpensive to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, but please, if you can make a connection, that would be great.
Thank you for sharing. I see we are coming up at the top of the hour, and thank you so much for staying with us. Thanks to all the speakers. I do want to make mention that we have quite a few green teams with us today. So thank you so much for everyone who's gone through our Faithful Green Leaders Training Program. We're so happy to have you here. Obviously, this is a supplement to this core training. And we want to invite you to stay with us just a few minutes after. We would greatly appreciate any feedback. We have a very short survey that goes over our action plan, and any feedback that you can use for us to help improve the program is greatly appreciated. There's also a link for an evaluation for this webinar. So we always appreciate your thoughts and take into consideration your feedback. And I would like to close with this very short, simple prayer. This is one that I've had for a couple years, and I love it. It's sweet and simple. It's from the Chinook tribe. This is a Northwest Coast tribe. And it's, may all I say and all I think be in harmony with thee. God within me, God beyond me, maker of the trees.
Amen.
And thank you so much. I hope everyone enjoyed all of the wonderful information that was shared. And for those still remaining, we have our outreach coordinators. Bear with me one moment, because we would greatly love that feedback. And thank you to all the speakers. Please feel free to hang around if you want, if anyone has last minute questions, but I don't want to hold you any longer. Your time is so valuable, and thank you for sharing all of your information with us.
Okay, I'm just going to stop the recording and then we'll go into the breakouts.
Thank you all. It was a pleasure to be here.